Imagine waking up in a small wooden cabin, hundreds of miles from the nearest road. Outside, the temperature is falling, a frozen river stretches into the darkness, and the only footprints in the snow may belong to a wolf, a moose, or a bear. Here in the Alaskan wilderness, warmth must be earned, food must be prepared months in advance, and even a simple journey can become a test of survival. Tonight, I invite you to travel with me beyond the last road and discover how people build a life far from civilization, surrounded by silence, danger, breathtaking beauty, and a freedom few of us will ever experience. The silence beyond the last road. There are places in Alaska where the nearest road is hundreds of miles away, where winter darkness can last most of the day, and where a person may hear no human-made sound for weeks at a time. Far beyond Alaska's cities and coastal towns lies an immense wilderness of mountains, forests, frozen rivers, tundra, and open sky. It is a landscape so large that ordinary measurements begin to lose their meaning. Distances are not always counted in miles, but in hours of daylight, gallons of fuel, changes in weather, and the strength required to cross a river or climb through deep snow. Some people choose to live here permanently, outside the systems that support modern urban life. Their homes may have no connection to an electrical grid, no running water, no paved road, and no nearby supermarket. A journey for supplies might require a small aircraft, a snowmobile, a boat, or several days of travel through terrain that can quickly become dangerous. From a scientific perspective, life in the Alaskan wilderness offers a remarkable example of human adaptation. The human body and mind evolved long before supermarkets, central heating, and electric lights existed. Yet most people today live surrounded by machines that regulate temperature, preserve food, provide water, and connect us instantly with others. In the wilderness, many of those invisible systems disappear. Every essential need becomes visible again. Warmth comes from wood that must be found, cut, split, dried, and carried. Water may come from a river, a spring, melted snow, or blocks of clean ice stored near a cabin. Food may be grown during a very short summer, gathered from the land, caught in rivers, hunted, preserved, or transported from a distant village. Even light becomes something precious. During an Alaskan winter, the sun may remain low above the horizon, offering only a few pale hours of daylight. Farther north, it can disappear completely for part of the season. In summer, the opposite occurs. The sun may barely set, filling the landscape with light through the night. These extreme changes influence sleep, mood, hormones, and daily behavior. Human circadian rhythms are guided partly by natural light. When daylight becomes unusually long or unusually short, the brain must adapt. People living in remote Alaska often create their own routines to replace the familiar rhythm of sunrise and sunset. They may cover cabin windows during the bright summer nights or use carefully timed lamps during winter darkness. Meals, chores, and sleep become important signals to the brain, helping the body understand when the day begins and when it is time to rest. But perhaps the most powerful force in the wilderness is not the cold. It is isolation. Imagine living in a cabin surrounded by spruce trees, with the nearest neighbor many miles away. There may be no telephone signal. Internet access, if available at all, may depend on satellite equipment, batteries, weather conditions, and careful energy use. For days, the only voices may come from family members, a radio, or one's own thoughts. Psychologists have long studied the effects of isolation on the human mind. In crowded environments, the brain is constantly processing faces, conversations, traffic, notifications, and movement. In the wilderness, much of that stimulation disappears. At first, the silence can feel almost uncomfortable. The modern mind is accustomed to interruption. Without it, thoughts become louder. Some wilderness residents describe this silence as deeply peaceful. Others say it can reveal emotions that are easier to ignore in civilization. Loneliness, old memories, uncertainty, and fear may rise to the surface. Living remotely therefore requires more than practical skill. It requires emotional balance. People must learn how to remain calm when plans fail, when storms arrive, or when equipment breaks. They must tolerate long periods without entertainment or social contact. They must make decisions without immediate assistance and accept that rescue may be delayed by weather or distance. This kind of life develops a particular form of awareness. In a city, a sudden change in wind may be barely noticed. In Alaska, it could signal an approaching storm. A drop in temperature may affect the safety of a river crossing. A strange sound outside the cabin could be falling ice, a tree cracking under snow, or an animal moving nearby. The wilderness teaches people to observe small details. The shape of clouds can suggest changing pressure. The behavior of birds may reveal the presence of a predator. Snow can carry a record of everything that passed during the night. Moose, foxes, wolves, hares, lynx, or bears that have not yet entered their winter dens. To a trained observer, the landscape is never empty. It is full of information. One of the most interesting adjustments is the way people begin to experience time. In cities, time is divided into meetings, appointments, alarms, and schedules. In the wilderness, time is often shaped by natural events. There is the hour when the stove must be fed, the season when salmon move through the rivers, the brief period when berries ripen, the weeks when firewood must be gathered before the first heavy snow. There is the moment when river ice becomes strong enough to travel across, and the dangerous period in spring when that same ice begins to weaken. Nature becomes both clock and calendar. This does not mean life is slow or easy. In fact, daily survival can involve intense physical labor. A remote household may spend much of summer preparing for winter. Firewood must be collected in large amounts. Cabins must be repaired. Food must be dried, smoked, canned, salted, frozen, or stored. The growing season is short, so gardens must be carefully planned. Certain vegetables, such as potatoes, cabbage, carrots, and kale, can grow surprisingly well under Alaska's long summer daylight. But frost may arrive early, and wildlife may discover the garden before the family does. Food storage becomes a science of temperature, moisture, contamination, and animal behavior. A poorly sealed container can attract rodents. Meat stored incorrectly can spoil. Supplies left outside may be discovered by bears. Even flour, rice, oil, and salt become valuable resources when the nearest store is a flight or a long river journey away. Many wilderness residents learn to repair almost everything they own. A broken generator, chainsaw, boat motor, or snowmobile cannot always be taken to a repair shop. Spare parts may take weeks to arrive. People improvise. They save bolts, wire, pieces of metal, old tools, and sections of machinery that might become useful later. Objects that would be thrown away in a city may have a second, third, or fourth life in the wilderness. This practical creativity is one reason remote living fascinates researchers. It reveals how quickly human beings can become more observant, more resourceful, and more directly connected to the consequences of their decisions. When fuel is limited, every journey matters. When food is limited, waste becomes unacceptable. When warmth depends on firewood, comfort is measured in hours of physical preparation. Yet despite these hardships, many people remain because the wilderness offers something difficult to find elsewhere: a sense of complete presence. There are no crowded streets beyond the cabin window. No endless traffic. No glowing skyline. Instead, there may be the soft hiss of snow against the roof, the slow breathing of a wood stove, and the distant cracking of ice on a frozen river. Above the trees, the aurora may appear without warning. Green light spreads across the sky, folding and twisting like a silent curtain. Scientifically, The aurora is created when charged particles from the sun interact with gases high in Earth's atmosphere. But when witnessed alone in a dark wilderness, it can feel less like physics and more like the sky itself has awakened. In moments like these, isolation becomes something else. It becomes intimacy with the natural world. And for the people who live beyond the last road, that relationship is not a temporary adventure. It is the foundation of daily life. Tonight, as we begin our journey through the Alaskan wilderness, imagine a small cabin beneath a wide northern sky. Smoke rises gently from the chimney. Snow rests heavily on the trees. Inside, the fire burns quietly while the world beyond the walls stretches for hundreds of silent miles. Here, civilization feels very far away, and the wilderness feels endless. Building a home where winter rules. In the Alaskan wilderness, a house is not merely a place to live. It is a carefully designed survival system standing between the human body and one of the most demanding climates on Earth. A remote cabin may look simple from the outside. For walls, a sloping roof, a small window, and a chimney releasing a thin ribbon of smoke into the cold air. But every part of that structure has a purpose. The angle of the roof, the thickness of the walls, the position of the door, and even the direction the windows face can determine how much warmth is preserved during the long winter months. Here, mistakes are not always minor inconveniences. A leaking roof can destroy stored food. A poorly insulated wall can consume precious firewood. A damaged stovepipe can fill a cabin with smoke or cause a fire when no emergency crew is nearby. People who build homes far from towns must think like carpenters, engineers, meteorologists, and survival specialists at the same time. The first challenge is location. A cabin should be close enough to water, but not so close that spring floods threaten it. It should be sheltered from the strongest winds, but not hidden beneath unstable trees that could fall during a storm. It may need access to a river, lake, or landing area for supplies, while remaining high enough to avoid shifting ice and seasonal flooding. The ground itself can also be difficult. In many northern regions, the soil contains permafrost, ground that remains frozen for at least 2 consecutive years. The upper layer may thaw during summer and freeze again in winter. This repeated movement can lift, tilt, or crack foundations. A building placed directly on unstable ground may slowly shift out of alignment. Doors stop closing properly. Floors become uneven. Walls begin to separate. For this reason, some wilderness homes are raised on posts, pilings, or carefully placed supports. The space beneath the building allows cold air to circulate and reduces the amount of heat transferred into the frozen soil. In other places, cabins are built on gravel pads or foundations designed to move slightly without breaking. The home must adapt to the land rather than force the land to remain still. This principle appears throughout wilderness life. Nature is rarely defeated. It is studied, respected, and worked around. Insulation is one of the most important elements of a remote Alaskan home. Heat naturally moves from warmer areas toward colder ones. During winter, every wall, window, crack, and opening becomes a pathway through which warmth can escape. Good insulation slows this movement. Modern cabins may use fiberglass, rigid foam, mineral wool, or specialized insulated panels. Older and simpler structures may rely on logs, moss, earth, sawdust, or other locally available materials. Thick log walls can store heat and release it slowly, especially when gaps between logs are carefully sealed. Even snow can act as insulation. Although snow feels cold to the touch, it contains countless pockets of trapped air. These pockets reduce heat transfer. In extreme conditions, snow piled around the lower walls of a cabin may help block wind and reduce heat loss. But snow also creates danger. A heavy accumulation on the roof adds enormous weight. Wet snow is especially dense. If a roof is too flat or poorly supported, the load can become destructive. Wilderness residents may climb onto roofs during winter to clear snow, working carefully above frozen ground. The roof is often steeply angled so snow can slide away more easily. Metal roofing is common because it sheds snow and resists sparks from a chimney. However, sliding snow can fall suddenly near doors and windows, so the building must be arranged to keep entrances safe. Inside the cabin, the heart of the home is often the wood stove. It provides heat, dries clothing, warms water, and sometimes cooks meals. On bitter nights, it may burn continuously. Its steady sound becomes part of the emotional atmosphere of the cabin. The gentle crackle of wood, the faint expansion of metal, and the soft movement of air rising through the stovepipe. But a wood stove requires constant attention. The fire must be fed. Ash must be removed. The chimney must be cleaned. Wood must be cut months in advance. Freshly cut wood contains moisture. When burned too soon, it produces less heat and more smoke. It can also create creosote, a flammable substance that collects inside chimneys and may ignite. Properly seasoned wood is usually split and allowed to dry for months. In the short Alaskan summer, residents gather and prepare enough fuel to last through a winter that may stretch far longer than expected. The amount required can be astonishing. A small cabin may consume many cords of wood in a season. A cord is a stacked volume measuring 128 cubic feet. Each piece may need to be felled, trimmed, cut, transported, split, stacked, protected from rain, and finally carried indoors. This means winter warmth begins with summer labor. Long before snow arrives, people listen to chainsaws echoing through the forest. Logs are dragged by hand, vehicle, sled, or boat. Split wood is stacked where air can move around it, often beneath a simple roof. A good wood pile is more than a collection of fuel. It is stored time, stored effort, stored security. When temperatures fall far below freezing, the sight of a full woodpile can bring a deep sense of calm. Some remote homes also use oil heaters, propane appliances, solar panels, generators, batteries, or small wind systems. But each technology has limitations. Fuel must be transported. Batteries lose efficiency in severe cold. Generators require maintenance. Solar panels produce little energy when winter daylight is brief, and they may need to be cleared after every snowfall. A modern off-grid home often uses several systems together. Solar energy may provide electricity during bright summer months. A generator may serve as backup. Wood may provide the main source of heat. Propane may power a stove or refrigerator. This combination is called redundancy. In engineering, redundancy means having more than one way to perform an essential function. In the wilderness, it can save lives. One stove is good. A second heat source is safer. One flashlight is useful. Several lights with different batteries are better. One method of communication may fail, so residents may keep a radio, satellite device, or emergency beacon as well. The same principle applies to food, water, tools, and transportation. Remote living rewards people who think ahead. A cabin may also contain fewer rooms than an urban house. Smaller spaces are easier to heat. Families may cook, eat, work, repair equipment, and relax in one central area. Privacy can be limited, but warmth is shared. Beds may be built into walls or raised into lofts, where warm air collects near the ceiling. Thick curtains help reduce heat loss through windows. Rugs cover cold floors. Shelves rise toward the roof, holding canned food, tools, medicine, spare clothing, and equipment. Every surface becomes useful. Even the entryway is carefully managed. When the door opens in extreme cold, warm air escapes rapidly. Some cabins have a small enclosed porch or vestibule that creates a buffer between the interior and the outside. Boots, snowshoes, parkas, gloves, and tools can be stored there. Clothing covered in snow must be dried, but not too close to the stove. If it remains damp, it may freeze the next time it is worn. Moisture inside the cabin can also collect on windows and walls, causing mold or ice. Ventilation is therefore essential, even in winter. This may seem surprising. Why allow cold air into a warm cabin? Because human breathing, cooking, drying clothes, and burning fuel all release moisture and gases. Without fresh air, indoor conditions can become unhealthy. Carbon monoxide is especially dangerous because it has no color or smell. A well-designed cabin must remain warm without becoming sealed too tightly. This is a delicate balance between energy conservation and human biology. Water creates another daily challenge. Many off-grid homes do not have conventional plumbing because pipes can freeze. Instead, residents may carry water in containers from a river, lake, spring, or hand pump. In winter, they may cut through thick ice or melt snow. Melting snow sounds simple, but snow contains far less water than its volume suggests. A large pot of loose snow may produce only a small amount of liquid. It also requires fuel, making it an expensive source of water in terms of energy. Clean ice is often more efficient. Some residents harvest blocks from lakes or rivers and store them for later use. Others maintain a water hole in the ice, protecting it from freezing completely. Every bucket carried to the cabin has weight. Every cup becomes noticeable. In cities, water disappears down drains without thought. In a remote cabin, water is lifted, transported, heated, used, and removed by hand. This often changes behavior. People learn to wash with less, reuse water when safe, and plan tasks carefully. Waste must also be managed. Some cabins use outhouses, composting systems, or specially designed toilets. In permafrost regions, digging can be difficult, and waste decomposes slowly in cold conditions. Systems must be placed far from water sources and designed to prevent contamination. Human survival depends not only on finding resources, but also on protecting them. Fire safety is another constant concern. A cabin filled with dry wood, fabric, paper, fuel, and heated metal can burn rapidly. In a remote area, there may be no fire department. Snow and cold do not eliminate the danger. In fact, frozen water and strong winds can make firefighting more difficult. Residents keep extinguishers, sand, tools, and emergency plans nearby. Stove clearances are checked. Chimneys are inspected. Fuel containers are stored away from living areas. The home must provide warmth without becoming the greatest threat within the landscape. And yet, for all the planning, labor, and risk, the remote cabin can become an extraordinarily comforting place. Outside, the temperature may fall until trees crack from the cold. Wind moves loose snow across the ground in pale ribbons. Darkness surrounds the forest, and frost slowly gathers along the window. Inside, a pot simmers on the stove. Wet gloves hang near the warmth. A lamp casts a golden circle across a wooden table. The walls may be simple, the furniture handmade, and the electricity limited. But every object has meaning because nearly everything was carried, built, repaired, or preserved with intention. The cabin does not separate its residents completely from the wilderness. It simply creates a small, warm center within it. And on the coldest nights, when the outside world seems made entirely of wind, snow, and darkness, that small center can feel like the safest place on Earth. Food, hunting, and the science of surviving winter. In the Alaskan wilderness, food is never simply a meal. It is stored energy, careful planning, physical labor, and sometimes the difference between comfort and genuine danger. Far from supermarkets and paved roads, every calorie has a story. It may begin in a river beneath the silver movement of salmon. It may come from a garden growing under nearly endless summer daylight. It may be carried in by aircraft, preserved in glass jars, dried beside a smoky fire, or stored frozen in an outdoor cache. For people living outside conventional civilization, obtaining food is not an occasional task. It is one of the central rhythms of the year. Summer may feel abundant, but winter is always waiting. That awareness shapes nearly every decision. In many remote communities and homesteads, the warm season becomes a time of intense preparation. Long daylight allows plants to grow rapidly, rivers become accessible, animals move across the landscape, and transportation becomes easier. Families gather, fish, hunt, garden, repair storage spaces, and preserve as much as they can. The work may appear peaceful from a distance, but it requires knowledge accumulated through years of observation. A river is not simply a river. Its temperature, current, depth, and seasonal changes all influence where fish will move. A hillside is not simply a hillside. Its vegetation, wind direction, and animal tracks may reveal where moose, caribou, or smaller game have passed. Scientific observation and traditional knowledge often meet here. People learn to recognize subtle patterns in weather and animal behavior. They may notice when migrating birds arrive later than usual, when berries ripen early, or when river levels change after an unusually warm spring. These signs can influence the entire food supply. One of the most important natural resources in Alaska is salmon. Each year, several species return from the ocean to the rivers where they were born. Guided by chemical signals and an extraordinary biological memory, they travel upstream to spawn. Their arrival provides food not only for humans, but also for bears, eagles, wolves, insects, and even forests. When bears carry salmon away from rivers, remains are left on the ground. Nutrients from the ocean enter the soil and may eventually become part of trees and plants. In this way, a fish can help feed an entire landscape. For wilderness residents, the salmon run can be one of the busiest times of year. Fish may be caught using rods, nets, fish wheels, or methods permitted under local regulations and subsistence traditions. Once caught, the fish must be processed quickly. Warm temperatures allow bacteria to multiply, so cleaning, cooling, and preserving must begin soon. Salmon may be filleted, smoked, dried, salted, canned, or frozen. Smoking serves several purposes. It removes moisture, adds compounds that slow microbial growth, and creates a rich flavor. But successful smoking requires balance. If the temperature is too high, the fish cooks unevenly. If it is too low or the fish remains too moist, spoilage may occur. The process may last hours or days, depending on the method. A smokehouse therefore becomes a place where chemistry, tradition, patience, and survival come together. Meat from larger animals also requires careful handling. Moose can provide a substantial quantity of food, but harvesting one creates an immediate logistical challenge. The animal is large, heavy, and often located far from the cabin. Meat must be cooled, protected from insects and predators, divided into manageable portions, and transported over difficult terrain. In warm weather, time becomes critical. This work demands strength, planning, and respect for the animal. In many wilderness households, little is wasted. Meat is eaten fresh, frozen, dried, canned, or made into stews and sausages. Bones may be used for broth. Fat may be rendered. Hides, antlers, and other materials may be used for practical or cultural purposes. This careful use of resources is not simply economical. It reflects the reality that obtaining food from the land carries effort, risk, and responsibility. Hunting in remote Alaska is often misunderstood by people who have never depended on it. It is not always a sport or a dramatic pursuit. For many families, it is part of the seasonal food system. It may reduce dependence on expensive supplies flown into isolated areas, where basic groceries can cost far more than they do in cities. At the same time, Successful hunting requires far more than owning equipment. A hunter must understand wind, terrain, animal movement, legal seasons, weather, and safety. They must know how far they can travel and still return before dark. They must calculate how much weight can be carried, how much fuel is available, and whether changing temperatures will affect the meat. A single decision can have consequences for many months. Wild animals also demand respect because they are unpredictable. Moose may appear slow and calm, but they can move quickly and become dangerous, especially when protecting calves or when stressed. Bears may be attracted by food odors, stored meat, fish waste, or poorly managed garbage. People living in bear country develop habits that may seem unusually strict to visitors. Food is sealed. Waste is controlled. Cooking areas are cleaned. Fish and meat are processed away from sleeping spaces when possible. Outdoor caches may be raised above the ground or built to resist animals. Some food is stored in locked structures or containers designed to reduce odor and access. These precautions are based on behavioral science. Animals repeat actions that reward them. A bear that successfully finds food near a cabin may return, becoming increasingly bold. Preventing that first reward protects both people and wildlife. Gardening offers a different form of food security. At first, Alaska may seem like an unlikely place for agriculture. Winters are severe, the growing season is short, and soils may be thin or poorly drained. Yet during summer, long hours of sunlight can support remarkable growth. Certain vegetables thrive in the cool climate. Cabbage, kale, peas, potatoes, turnips, radishes, carrots, lettuce, and broccoli may grow well when conditions are managed carefully. In some areas, vegetables reach unusually large sizes because photosynthesis continues through long summer days. But daylight alone is not enough. Plants require suitable soil, nutrients, water, and protection from frost. Raised beds may be used where the ground is cold or wet. Greenhouses extend the season and protect crops from wind. Dark containers or coverings may absorb heat and warm the soil. Gardeners often begin seedlings indoors while snow still covers the ground. This requires looking months ahead. The tiny green leaves that appear beside a cabin window in late winter are more than plants. They are a promise that summer will return. Wild berries add variety and important nutrients. Blueberries, cranberries, cloudberries, salmonberries, raspberries, and other species grow in different regions of Alaska. Picking them can be a peaceful task, but it also requires attention. Some edible berries resemble harmful plants. Accurate identification is essential. People must also remain aware of bears, which are drawn to the same food sources. Berries may be eaten fresh, frozen, dried, cooked into preserves, or added to baked foods. They provide vitamin C and other compounds that may be harder to obtain during winter. Mushrooms, roots, herbs, and edible greens can also supplement the diet, but foraging carries serious risks. Some mushrooms are poisonous, and visual similarity can be deceptive. Even experienced foragers may avoid uncertain species. In wilderness survival, confidence must be based on knowledge, not hope. Preservation is perhaps the most important science in the remote kitchen. Food naturally decomposes because of bacteria, fungi, enzymes, oxygen, and moisture. Preservation works by slowing or interrupting these processes. Freezing slows microbial growth. Drying removes the moisture organisms need. Salting changes the chemical environment. Canning uses heat and sealed containers to prevent contamination. Each method has advantages and dangers. Improper canning can allow dangerous bacteria to grow without changing the smell or appearance of food. Low-acid foods, including meat and many vegetables, usually require pressure canning to reach safe temperatures. Remote residents who preserve food must follow precise procedures. In this part of wilderness life, intuition is not enough. Temperature, pressure, cleanliness, acidity, and processing time matter. A shelf filled with sealed jars may look warm and traditional, but behind it is microbiology. Cold storage presents its own challenges. Winter temperatures can turn the entire landscape into a freezer. Meat and fish may be stored in protected outdoor areas, but the temperature does not remain constant. A warm spell can cause partial thawing. Repeated freezing and thawing damages food and creates opportunities for bacterial growth. Animals are another concern. A storage structure must resist foxes, ravens, rodents, bears, and other determined visitors. Ravens are especially intelligent and can solve surprisingly complex problems when food is involved. A container that seems secure to a human may appear simple to a hungry animal. Electric freezers provide more control, but they depend on electricity. A generator failure or empty fuel tank can threaten months of stored food. For this reason, residents frequently check their systems. They listen for changes in the sound of a motor. They monitor temperature. They keep backup fuel and may divide food among several storage methods. Again, redundancy becomes survival. Dry food such as rice, beans, oats, flour, sugar, coffee, powdered milk, and pasta are usually purchased in bulk. In places accessible only by boat or aircraft, supply trips may occur only a few times each year. Planning the quantities requires careful calculation. How much flour will a household use in 6 months? How much fuel is needed to cook it? How many meals can be produced if hunting is unsuccessful? What happens if weather delays the next delivery? A storm can prevent aircraft from landing for days or even weeks. River conditions can stop boat travel. Mechanical problems may delay supplies. A full pantry reduces the power of uncertainty. But storing food also affects the human mind. In urban life, abundance is often invisible. Shelves are restocked overnight. Refrigeration is constant. Fresh produce may be available in every season. In the wilderness, abundance is seen directly. It appears as jars lined along a wall, smoked fish hanging in rows, sacks stacked in a dry corner, or frozen packages organized for the months ahead. People know exactly how much they have. They also know how quickly it can disappear. This creates a different relationship with meals. Leftovers are valuable. Bones become broth. Old bread becomes another dish. Food scraps may be composted when safe or used in carefully controlled ways. Waste is reduced not through abstract environmental concern alone, but because every item required effort to obtain. Cooking itself may be slower and more deliberate. Bread rises near the wood stove. Soup simmers for hours. Dried beans soften in heavy pots. Fish cooks over fire. Meals depend on what is available, not always on what someone desires at that moment. This limitation can produce creativity. A skilled wilderness cook learns to substitute ingredients, stretch supplies, and create comfort from simple foods. A warm stew after hours in the cold may feel more satisfying than an elaborate restaurant meal. Hunger, temperature, labor, and emotion change the way food is experienced. Eating is also social. In isolated homes, shared meals create structure. They bring people together after separate chores and provide a moment to talk, rest, and plan. During the dark season, the kitchen becomes one of the brightest places in the cabin. Steam gathers above a pot. A knife moves slowly across a wooden board. The scent of bread or smoked fish fills the room. Outside, the temperature continues to fall, but inside, the stored energy of summer is released as warmth and nourishment. This is the quiet miracle of wilderness food. Sunlight captured by plants becomes vegetables. Ocean nutrients become salmon. Grass and leaves become the strength of a moose. Wood becomes cooking fire. Human labor connects every step. And when winter closes the rivers, buries the garden, and darkens the sky, the shelves and freezers hold more than food. They hold memories of summer. They hold preparation. They hold the patient knowledge that life can continue through the coldest season, one carefully preserved meal at a time. Beyond the roads, travel, distance, and rescue. In the Alaskan wilderness, distance is not measured only in miles. It is measured in weather, fuel, daylight, river current, snow depth, and the number of safe choices remaining. A cabin may appear close to a village on a map, yet reaching it can require hours by boat, snowmobile, dog sled, or small aircraft. A mountain ridge, a frozen river, or a sudden storm can transform a short journey into an impossible one. This is one of the most fascinating truths about life outside civilization. Movement is never automatic. Every trip begins with a question. Is the land ready to let you pass? In cities, roads are maintained, bridges remain in place, and streetlights guide travelers through darkness. In remote Alaska, routes can change with every season. A river that serves as a highway in summer may become dangerous during autumn freeze-up. Later, once the ice thickens, that same river may become the fastest winter trail. Then spring arrives, and the highway disappears again. For wilderness residents, understanding these seasonal transitions is a form of practical science. Ice is never simply frozen water. Its strength depends on thickness, temperature, current, snow cover, pressure cracks, and the movement of water beneath it. Clear, newly formed ice is generally stronger than cloudy or layered ice. River ice can be especially unpredictable because flowing water continues to erode it from below. Springs, narrow channels, vegetation, and underwater obstacles can create thin areas that are difficult to see. A smooth white surface may hide a serious danger. People who travel across frozen lakes and rivers learn to observe color, sound, texture, and recent weather. They may test the ice with poles or drills. They avoid unfamiliar areas and remain cautious near river bends, inlets, and outlets. Local knowledge is often more valuable than any general rule. A resident who has watched the same river for 20 winters may recognize places where the ice always forms late or weakens early. This knowledge is built through memory, conversation, and repeated observation. It is not complete control over nature. It is a respectful understanding of patterns. Snowmobiles are among the most important forms of winter transportation in remote regions. They can carry people, firewood, equipment, food, and emergency supplies over vast snowy distances. But a snowmobile is not simply started and driven away. Cold affects every part of the machine. Engine oil thickens. Plastic becomes brittle. Batteries lose power. Rubber belts stiffen. Metal contracts. Fuel systems may freeze or become blocked by moisture. A small mechanical failure far from home can become a survival emergency. For this reason, experienced travelers carry tools, spare belts, spark plugs, rope, fuel, warm clothing, food, and materials for making a fire. They may also carry snowshoes. This is an important wilderness principle. Never depend completely on the machine that carries you. A snowmobile may cover 20 miles quickly, but if it stops, the traveler must still survive those 20 miles on foot. In deep snow, walking without snowshoes can be exhausting. Each step may sink to the knee or waist, requiring enormous energy. Snowshoes distribute body weight across a wider surface, reducing how deeply a person sinks. The design is simple, but the physics is elegant. By increasing the area beneath the foot, pressure on the snow decreases. What appears to be an old traditional tool remains one of the most effective ways to travel through soft snow. In summer, rivers often become the main transportation routes. Boats carry residents between cabins, villages, hunting areas, fishing sites, and supply points. Some rivers are wide and slow. Others are shallow, fast, and filled with hidden gravel bars or drifting wood. Water levels change. A route that was safe in June may become too shallow in August. A channel used the previous year may shift after spring floods. Boat operators learn to read the surface of the water. Small changes in color or texture may reveal depth, current, or submerged obstacles. They listen to the motor and feel vibrations through the hull. Travel becomes an active conversation with the river. Fuel must be calculated carefully. A boat cannot simply stop at the next station in a landscape without roads. Residents often carry extra containers and plan for delays. Strong winds can slow a boat and increase fuel consumption. A loaded vessel behaves differently from an empty one. Cold water creates another danger. Even during mild weather, immersion can rapidly reduce body temperature. The human body loses heat much faster in water than in air. Muscles weaken, coordination disappears, and clear thinking becomes difficult. Life jackets, dry clothing, emergency blankets, and communication devices are therefore not signs of fear. They are signs of respect for physiology. Small aircraft are another essential part of remote Alaskan life. In many regions, they function almost like cars, ambulances, delivery trucks, and school buses combined. Bush planes transport groceries, medicine, mail, building materials, fuel, hunters, teachers, medical workers, and families. Some land on gravel strips. Others are equipped with floats for lakes and rivers. In winter, skis may allow them to land on snow or frozen surfaces. Flying in Alaska requires extraordinary attention to weather and terrain. Mountain winds, fog, snow, low clouds, icing, and sudden visibility changes can make travel dangerous. A clear morning does not guarantee a clear afternoon. Weather forecasts help, but remote landscapes can create local conditions that are difficult to predict. Valleys trap fog. Mountains force air upward, creating clouds and turbulence. Coastal storms move quickly inland. Pilots learn to respect uncertainty. One of the most important decisions in wilderness aviation is the decision not to fly. For someone waiting at a cabin, a cancelled flight may be frustrating. It may mean another day without fresh supplies, medicine, visitors, or transportation. But in remote life, patience is often safer than urgency. The landscape does not respond to schedules. People must change their plans instead. This dependence on weather affects almost every part of daily life. A family may prepare for a supply delivery, only to learn that the aircraft cannot arrive. Food must last longer. Fuel must be conserved. Appointments may be missed. In ordinary civilization, delay is an inconvenience. In the wilderness, delay is an expected part of planning. Communication has changed remote living dramatically. In earlier generations, some families relied on radio schedules, written messages, or occasional visitors. Today, satellite phones, emergency beacons, satellite internet, and GPS devices can connect even isolated cabins to the outside world. But technology does not remove all risk. Devices need electricity. Batteries weaken in cold temperatures. Antennas require a clear view of the sky. Clouds, terrain, damaged equipment, or service limitations can interrupt communication. A satellite device may help someone call for assistance, but it cannot make a storm disappear or force a rescue aircraft to land. This creates an important psychological balance. Remote residents may have access to modern communication, yet they cannot assume immediate rescue. Self-reliance remains essential. Emergency planning begins long before an accident occurs. People tell others where they are going and when they expect to return. They carry first aid supplies and know how to treat common injuries. They understand that small problems can become serious when help is far away. A cut that becomes infected, a broken bone, severe dehydration, or an allergic reaction may require urgent evacuation. The challenge is not only medical, it is logistical. Where can an aircraft land? Is the river open? Is the weather safe? Can the injured person be moved? How many hours of daylight remain? In a remote environment, rescue is a chain of connected decisions. If one link fails, the entire response may be delayed. This is why prevention is so important. Axes are handled carefully. Chainsaws are maintained. Firearms are stored safely. Ladders are used cautiously. Travel is postponed when conditions are uncertain. In a city, a minor mistake may be followed by a short ambulance ride. In the wilderness, the same mistake may lead to hours or days of waiting. This awareness changes behavior. People often move more slowly and deliberately. They check equipment twice. They avoid taking unnecessary risks alone. They learn that confidence should never become carelessness. The human mind, however, can be vulnerable to a dangerous psychological pattern known as normalization. When someone performs a risky task many times without being injured, the brain begins to treat it as safe. The absence of previous accidents feels like proof that an accident will not happen. But wilderness conditions are never exactly repeated. The snow may be deeper. The ice may be thinner. The wind may be stronger. The body may be more tired. Experienced residents learn to question familiarity. They know that a route used safely 100 times can become dangerous on the next journey. Fatigue is another hidden threat. Physical exhaustion slows reaction time and weakens judgment. Cold increases energy use because the body must produce heat. Heavy clothing restricts movement. Deep snow, wind, and darkness add stress. A tired traveler may ignore warning signs or choose a shortcut. For this reason, rest is not laziness in the wilderness. It is part of survival. People plan warm-up stops, carry high-energy food, and avoid traveling beyond their physical limits. They understand that returning safely is more important than completing the original goal. Navigation also requires multiple skills. GPS devices are useful, but batteries can fail and screens can break. Traditional maps, compasses, landmarks, and knowledge of rivers remain valuable. In flat, snowy landscapes, familiar features may disappear beneath white conditions. During a whiteout, sky and ground seem to merge. Shadows vanish. Distance becomes difficult to judge. A traveler may lose direction only a short distance from home. Sound can also behave strangely in cold, open environments. Voices and engine noise may travel farther under certain atmospheric conditions, while wind can make nearby sounds difficult to locate. The wilderness can alter perception. This is why experienced travelers maintain awareness of direction before visibility disappears. They mark routes, note wind direction, and pay attention to the landscape while conditions are still clear. Dog teams, though less common for everyday transport than they once were, remain one of the most iconic methods of northern travel. A well-trained sled dog can navigate snow, endure cold, and work as part of a coordinated group. Dogs may detect weak ice, changes in trail conditions, or wildlife before a human does. The relationship between musher and team is based on communication, trust, training, and care. Dogs are not machines. They become tired, hungry, injured, or frightened. Their performance depends on nutrition, conditioning, poor health, temperature, and emotional connection with the person guiding them. From a biological perspective, northern sled dogs are beautifully adapted to cold. Their coats trap insulating air. Their circulation helps protect their feet. Their metabolism supports endurance over long distances. Yet their greatest ability may be social. They understand group movement. They respond to voice. They remember trails. They share the journey. Whether traveling by dogs, machines, boats, or aircraft, remote residents develop a strong awareness that no one is truly independent. Self-reliance is important, but cooperation is equally important. Neighbors may live many miles apart, yet they check on one another. They share information about weather, trail conditions, wildlife, and mechanical problems. They may carry supplies, help repair a machine, or join a search when someone is missing. Distance can make human relationships more valuable, not less. A visitor arriving after weeks of isolation brings more than conversation. They may bring medicine, letters, spare parts, fresh food, or news from the outside world. The sound of an approaching engine can create powerful emotion. A boat motor across the river. A plane circling above the trees. A snowmobile moving closer through the darkness. Each sound means that the silent world has briefly opened. But when the visitor leaves, the silence returns. The river flows on. Snow slowly covers the tracks. The aircraft becomes a small shape in the distance and disappears beyond the mountains. Once again, the cabin stands alone beneath the immense Alaskan sky. And those who live there understand something the rest of us rarely need to consider. Travel is never guaranteed. Help is never immediate. The road home may change overnight. So before each journey, they pause. They study the sky. They listen to the wind. They check the fuel, the tools, the clothing, and the light. Then, only when the wilderness seems willing, they begin to move. Winter darkness and the psychology of isolation. The cold can freeze rivers, silence engines, and turn ordinary mistakes into emergencies. But the darkness changes something deeper. It changes the mind. During winter in the far north, daylight can become brief, pale, and precious. In some parts of Alaska, the sun rises only slightly above the horizon before disappearing again. Farther north, it may remain below the horizon for weeks. This does not mean the world becomes completely black. For a few hours each day, the sky may glow with a soft blue twilight. Snow reflects every trace of light, making the landscape appear brighter than expected. The moon can illuminate frozen rivers, mountains, and forests with a silver radiance so clear that shadows stretch across the snow. Still, the absence of strong daylight affects human biology. Our bodies contain an internal timekeeping system known as the circadian rhythm. It helps regulate sleep, alertness, body temperature, digestion, and the release of hormones. Light is one of the most powerful signals that keeps this system synchronized with the 24-hour day. When morning light reaches the eyes, specialized cells in the retina send information to the brain. This tells the body that the day has begun. Alertness increases, and the production of melatonin, a hormone associated with nighttime, decreases. In the dark Alaskan winter, that natural signal can become weak. A person may wake while the outside world still looks like night. They may complete several hours of work before the first twilight appears. By mid-afternoon, darkness has returned. The brain can begin to feel uncertain about time. Some people experience increased tiredness, difficulty concentrating, changes in appetite, or a lower mood. Others feel an urge to sleep longer. These reactions are not signs of weakness. They reflect the close relationship between human physiology and the natural light cycle. Remote residents often create artificial structure to help the body adapt. They wake at consistent times. They turn on bright lights in the morning. They eat meals according to a schedule. They perform physical work, go outside during the brightest part of the day, and maintain evening routines that signal the approach of sleep. In a place where sunrise and sunset cannot always provide a reliable clock, habits become biological anchors. Light inside the cabin must also be managed carefully. Electricity may be limited, so every lamp has a cost. It may draw energy from batteries, solar storage, fuel power generators, or another off-grid system. During winter, solar panels produce less energy because days are short and the sun remains low. Snow can cover the panels, and long cloudy periods may reduce output even further. This means residents may live with softer, more selective lighting. A bright lamp shines over the table while the corners of the cabin remain dim. Headlamps are used for chores. Candles or oil lamps may provide a warm glow, although they require careful ventilation and fire safety. The darkness outside makes every interior light feel more meaningful. A single window glowing in the wilderness can be seen from far away. It becomes a tiny sign of human life surrounded by an enormous night. Yet the psychological challenge is not darkness alone. It is darkness combined with isolation. Imagine waking in a small cabin while wind pushes snow against the walls. No road connects you to a town. The river is frozen, the aircraft cannot arrive, and the nearest neighbor may be many miles away. There is no casual conversation with a stranger. No quick trip to a cafe. No crowded street where another human face appears every few seconds. Days may pass without seeing anyone outside the household. For some people, this solitude feels like freedom. The nervous system receives fewer demands. There are no traffic sounds, workplace interruptions, or constant notifications. The mind can settle into a slower rhythm. The silence becomes restorative. For others, the same environment can become emotionally difficult. Humans are social mammals. Our brains evolved in groups, where safety, food, learning, and survival depended on relationships. Even highly independent people need connection. Loneliness is not simply a thought. It can influence stress hormones, sleep quality, attention, and immune function. The brain may become more alert to danger when a person feels socially isolated, as if the absence of a group has made the environment less safe. In the wilderness, these feelings may become stronger during storms or emergencies. A broken machine feels more serious when no one is nearby. A strange illness feels more frightening. A conflict inside the household becomes harder to escape. In a city, someone can leave the house, visit friends, or spend time in another environment. In a remote cabin, the same few rooms may contain work, rest, family life, and every disagreement. Psychological resilience, therefore, becomes an essential wilderness skill. This resilience does not mean never feeling afraid, lonely, or frustrated. It means recognizing those emotions without allowing them to control every decision. People develop different strategies. Some keep journals. Some read extensively. Some listen to radio programs, music, or recorded books. Some carve wood, sew clothing, repair tools, paint, write, study, or build objects during the long winter evenings. These activities do more than fill time. They create purpose. The human mind responds well to visible progress. A repaired chair, a knitted garment, a finished book, or a row of sharpened tools provides evidence that the day had meaning. Without such structure, days can blend together. This is one reason routine becomes so important. Morning begins with feeding the stove. Water is heated. Animals are checked. Snow is cleared from the entrance. Weather conditions are observed. Wood is carried inside. Equipment is inspected. The same tasks repeat, but repetition is not always dull. It gives shape to time. In psychology, predictable routines can reduce mental stress because they limit the number of decisions the brain must make. When the environment is already uncertain, familiar rituals provide stability. The sound of coffee being prepared, the smell of wood smoke, and the sight of a lamp shining over the table can become deeply reassuring. Cabin fever is a common expression used to describe restlessness, irritation, or emotional discomfort after long periods in a confined place. It is not a single medical condition, but it describes a real collection of experiences. People may become impatient with each other. Small sounds become irritating. Motivation decreases. The cabin begins to feel smaller. Experienced wilderness residents learn to recognize these changes early. They understand the value of personal space, even when physical space is limited. One person may work outside while another remains indoors. Quiet periods may be respected. Tasks can be divided so everyone feels useful and has some control over the day. Communication becomes essential. In isolation, unspoken tension can grow. A minor disagreement about firewood, fuel, food, or cleaning may represent something deeper. Exhaustion, fear, lack of privacy, or uncertainty about the future. People who live successfully in remote environments often develop the ability to speak directly but calmly. Cooperation is not simply polite. It is necessary for survival. Every person must know what to do if someone becomes sick or injured. Everyone must understand how the heating system works, where emergency supplies are kept, and how to communicate with the outside world. Dependence becomes mutual. Even people who live alone maintain a form of social network. They may contact relatives by radio or satellite connection. They may arrange regular check-ins with neighbors. A missed message can signal that something is wrong. In remote regions, checking on someone is more than kindness. It is a safety system. Animals also provide companionship. Dogs are especially important in many wilderness households. They may assist with travel, warn of approaching wildlife, and provide emotional comfort. A dog hears sounds before a person does. It notices movement outside the cabin and reacts to unfamiliar scents. Its presence can make the night feel less empty. There is also something psychologically soothing about caring for another living being. The animal needs food, water, shelter, exercise, and attention. These responsibilities create routine and connection. But keeping animals in extreme cold requires serious commitment. Water bowls freeze. Paws can be injured by ice. Food must be stored in large quantities, and sick animals may be far from veterinary care. Companionship in the wilderness always comes with responsibility. Winter darkness can also alter perception. When someone spends long periods in silence, faint sounds become more noticeable. The movement of snow from a branch may sound like footsteps. Ice expanding on a lake can produce deep booms and sharp cracks that travel for miles. A cabin changes temperature through the night. Wood contracts. Metal ticks. Wind moves around corners and through trees. To an inexperienced visitor, these sounds may feel mysterious or alarming. To a long-term resident, they become a language. A soft sliding sound may mean snow is moving from the roof. A repeated tapping may mean a loose object is striking the wall. A sudden silence from the dogs may be more important than barking. The brain learns which sounds belong to the environment and which require attention. This adaptation reduces unnecessary fear. Fear itself is useful. It prepares the body to respond to danger. The heart beats faster, muscles tense, and attention narrows. But when there is no immediate threat, prolonged fear becomes exhausting. Wilderness residents must learn to separate possibility from probability. A bear could be outside, but the sound may only be a branch. A storm could become severe, but the cabin is prepared. A generator could fail, but another heat source is available. Preparation gives the mind a reason to remain calm. This is one of the deepest psychological truths of remote living. Confidence often comes from repeated action, not positive thinking alone. A person feels safer because the woodpile is full, because emergency food is stored, because the radio was tested, because the stove was cleaned, because someone knows their location. Practical preparation becomes emotional protection. The winter sky also offers moments of extraordinary beauty. On clear nights, stars appear with remarkable intensity. Without city lights, the Milky Way stretches across the darkness as a pale river. Satellites move silently overhead, and meteors briefly brighten the sky. Then the northern lights may begin. At first, there may be only a faint green band above the horizon. Slowly, it strengthens, rises, and divides into glowing shapes. Curtains of light fold across the stars. Sometimes they move gently. At other times, they appear to pulse and dance across the entire sky. The scientific explanation is elegant. Charged particles released by the sun travel through space and interact with Earth's magnetic field. Some are guided toward the polar regions, where they collide with atoms and molecules in the upper atmosphere. These collisions release light. Oxygen may produce green or red colors. Nitrogen can contribute blue and purple tones. But scientific understanding does not remove the wonder. A person may step outside the cabin in heavy boots and layers of clothing, watching their breath form clouds in the cold. The snow reflects a faint green glow. The forest stands completely still. For a few minutes, isolation does not feel empty. It feels immense. The person watching may be the only human being for many miles, yet the sky creates a sense of connection to something far larger than any town or road. Winter teaches patience because it cannot be rushed. The days will remain dark until the planet's movement gradually brings the sun higher again. No amount of worry can change the angle of Earth's axis. Residents wait. They watch the calendar, but they also watch the horizon. Then one day, sunlight reaches a place it has not touched for weeks. A beam enters the cabin or strikes the top of a distant mountain. The change may last only a few minutes, but it is noticed immediately. Light returns gradually. Each day becomes slightly longer. The body responds. Energy begins to shift. Plans for spring slowly enter conversation. This return of the sun can feel deeply emotional. It reminds people that darkness is not permanent, even when it has lasted for months. And perhaps that is one of the most powerful lessons of life in the Alaskan wilderness. Human beings do not survive isolation by becoming emotionless. They survive by creating warmth, routine, meaning, and connection within it. They place another log in the stove. They prepare the evening meal. They listen to the wind and recognize its voice. Outside, the wilderness remains dark and vast. But inside the cabin, a lamp is still burning. Living beside bears, wolves, and the wild. In the Alaskan wilderness, a person may go for days without seeing another human being. But that does not mean they are alone. The forest is watching. Tracks appear beside the cabin during the night. Branches move where there is no wind. Ravens circle above the trees. And somewhere beyond the river, a wolf may be listening to sounds too faint for human ears. To live outside civilization is to share the landscape with animals that are stronger, faster, and often far better adapted to it than we are. This relationship is one of the most fascinating parts of wilderness life. It is not a constant battle between humans and predators. More often, it is a quiet system of boundaries, signals, habits, and mutual avoidance. People who live remotely learn that wild animals are neither monsters nor pets. They are neighbors with their own needs. Among the most powerful of these neighbors are bears. Alaska is home to black bears, brown bears, and polar bears, depending on the region. Brown bears include the very large coastal bears often called grizzlies in inland areas, although the terms are sometimes used differently according to location and tradition. A bear may weigh several times more than a human. It can run with astonishing speed, swim rivers, climb slopes, move quietly through dense vegetation, and follow scents across long distances. Its sense of smell is one of its greatest advantages. A bear may detect food that a person cannot smell at all. This is why wilderness households treat odor as seriously as a locked door. Fish, meat, cooking grease, animal feed, garbage, toothpaste, and even scented products may attract attention. Food is stored in secure containers, sheds, elevated caches, or areas separated from sleeping spaces. Fish cleaning sites are placed away from the cabin when possible. Scraps are managed carefully. Outdoor grills are cleaned rather than left coated in grease. These routines are not based on the belief that bears are constantly hunting people. Most bears prefer to avoid humans. The real danger often begins when a bear learns that a human home provides easy food. Once rewarded, it may return repeatedly and become less cautious. Wildlife biologists call this food conditioning. The bear begins to associate people, cabins, boats, or camps with calories. This can lead to damaged property, dangerous encounters, and eventually the death of the animal if it becomes impossible to manage safely. Preventing access protects everyone. In this way, good wilderness behavior is also a form of conservation. People learn to read bear signs. Fresh tracks reveal size and direction. Claw marks may appear on trees. Torn vegetation, turned stones, droppings, or partly eaten fish can show that a bear is nearby. The age of a track matters. A sharply defined print in wet soil may have been made recently. A track softened by wind, rain, or melting snow may be much older. But interpretation is never perfect. A person must avoid becoming overconfident. The absence of tracks does not prove the absence of a bear. Sound is often used to reduce surprise encounters. When walking through thick brush, people may talk, clap, or make other human noises. The goal is not to frighten every animal in the forest. It is to provide warning. A startled bear at close range may react defensively, especially if it is protecting cubs, food, or personal space. The safest encounter is often the one that never happens. Residents also learn to observe the wind. If the wind is blowing from the animal toward the person, the bear may not detect the human scent. If it is blowing in the opposite direction, the animal may smell the person long before becoming visible. This is a simple lesson in atmospheric movement, but in bear country it becomes practical survival knowledge. Wildlife awareness changes how ordinary chores are performed. A person gathering berries looks around frequently. Someone carrying fish checks the trail ahead. Dogs are monitored because they may chase wildlife and then run back toward the cabin with an angry animal behind them. Children are taught not to wander silently into dense vegetation. Even walking to an outhouse after dark may involve a flashlight, noise, and a careful look around the doorway. These habits become automatic. Fear slowly changes into respect. Moose can be just as dangerous as bears, though they are often perceived as gentle. Their long legs and slow movements create an impression of calm. Yet an adult moose is a massive animal capable of striking with its hooves. A mother protecting a calf may react aggressively, and winter stress can make animals less tolerant of close contact. Deep snow also affects behavior. Humans create packed trails around cabins, sheds, and woodpiles. Moose may use these easier routes to conserve energy. This can bring them unexpectedly close to homes. Residents give them space. They avoid standing between a cow and calf. They watch for flattened ears, raised hair, lowered heads, or other signs of agitation. Living with wildlife means understanding body language across species. Not every warning is a roar or charge. Sometimes the message is a shift in posture. Wolves occupy a different place in the northern imagination. They are often heard more than seen. A distant howl may travel across frozen valleys, carrying far through cold, still air. One wolf begins, and others answer. The sound can feel haunting to a visitor, but for wilderness residents it may simply be another sign that the natural community is active. Wolves are highly social animals. They cooperate when raising young, defending territory, and hunting. Their groups are commonly known as packs, although pack structure is often more accurately understood as a family unit. Parents, young animals, and sometimes older offspring travel together. Their communication includes howls, scent marking, posture, facial expressions, and physical contact. Most wolves avoid close contact with people. They are cautious and observant, but they may investigate dogs, carcasses, or food sources near remote homes. Residents therefore avoid leaving meat waste exposed. Small animals are protected, and dogs may be brought inside or kept close during certain conditions. The howl of a wolf also reveals something important about wilderness acoustics. Cold air can bend sound and allow it to travel in unexpected ways. Snow may absorb some high-frequency sounds, while open frozen surfaces carry others across great distances. A wolf that sounds nearby may be much farther away than it appears. The wilderness constantly reminds people that human senses are limited. Lynx move with even greater secrecy. With large paws that act almost like natural snowshoes, they travel across deep snow while hunting hares. Their ear tufts, thick fur, and wide feet make them beautifully adapted to northern forests. A resident may never see the animal itself, yet discover its round tracks near the edge of a trail. Predator populations are closely connected to prey. When snowshoe hare numbers rise, lynx often have more food and may produce more surviving young. When hare populations fall, lynx numbers may later decline as well. These cycles demonstrate how strongly species are linked. No animal lives independently of the rest of the ecosystem. Foxes may appear near cabins with more confidence. They are curious, intelligent, and skilled at locating small food scraps. Their thick winter fur makes them appear almost too delicate for the extreme cold, yet they are remarkably capable survivors. Some foxes listen for movement beneath the snow. When they detect a small rodent, they may leap into the air and dive headfirst through the surface. This behavior is known as mousing. It looks playful, but it is a precise hunting technique based on hearing, timing, and body control. People are often tempted to feed foxes because they seem less threatening than bears. But feeding changes behavior. A fox that loses fear of humans may become demanding, damage property, or spread disease. True care for wildlife sometimes means keeping a distance. Ravens are among the most noticeable and intelligent animals around remote homes. They remember locations, observe human routines, investigate containers, and communicate with a surprising variety of calls. A raven may watch while someone processes fish or prepares animal feed. It may wait patiently for an opportunity, then return with others. Studies of corvids, the bird family that includes ravens and crows, have revealed advanced problem-solving, memory, and social awareness. Wilderness residents often develop a strange respect for them. Ravens can be thieves, companions, alarm systems, and weather observers all at once. Their behavior may signal a carcass or predator nearby. Sudden gatherings of birds can draw attention to something hidden beyond the trees. Smaller animals create their own challenges. Mice can enter through tiny gaps, damage food supplies, chew electrical wires, and build nests inside insulation. Squirrels may invade roofs or storage areas. Porcupines are sometimes attracted to salt and may chew wooden structures, tool handles, or parts of vehicles. A cabin must be defended not only against dramatic predators, but also against persistent small visitors. The solution is usually not cruelty. It is design. Food containers are sealed. Holes are repaired. Supplies are raised from the floor. Firewood is inspected before being carried inside. Buildings are maintained so animals are not invited unintentionally. The wilderness teaches that prevention requires less energy than conflict. Domestic animals also change the balance. Dogs may provide companionship, warning, and protection, but they also create scent, sound, and food sources. Chickens, goats, or other livestock can attract predators. Keeping them safely requires strong enclosures, careful feeding, and awareness of local wildlife. A simple fence that works in a town may be useless against a determined bear or fox. People must think like the animal they are trying to exclude. Where would it climb? What would it dig beneath? What smell would draw it closer? What opening would it notice? This is applied behavioral science. The resident studies the animal's motivation and redesigns the environment. There is also an emotional side to living among wild creatures. A person may become attached to the animals that pass regularly near the cabin. A particular moose may be recognized by its markings. A fox may follow the same trail each evening. A pair of ravens may nest nearby for several seasons. But wilderness life does not allow the comforting illusion that every story ends peacefully. Animals become injured. Young fail to survive. Predators hunt prey. Harsh winters reduce food. The death of one animal supports the life of another. To witness this closely can be difficult, especially for someone accustomed to seeing nature only through documentaries. In the wilderness, nature is beautiful, but it is not sentimental. A wolf does not hunt because it is cruel. A bear does not break into a cache because it is malicious. A raven does not steal because it understands ownership. Each animal follows instincts shaped by survival. Humans, too, become part of this system. They take food from rivers and forests. They protect gardens. They alter trails. They create warmth and waste. Their presence influences which animals approach and which stay away. Living outside civilization does not mean living outside nature. It means accepting that human life is one force among many. At night, this truth can feel especially close. The cabin grows quiet after the stove is filled. Moonlight reaches through the window. Beyond the walls, unseen animals move through the darkness. A hare crosses the snow. A fox follows its scent. A moose breaks a branch beneath its weight. Farther away, wolves travel along a frozen river, their paws touching the same ice used by human machines during the day. The person inside may never see them, yet their presence changes the atmosphere. The wilderness is not empty land waiting for humans to occupy it. It is already inhabited. Every valley contains paths older than roads. Every riverbank holds tracks. Every forest is filled with lives moving beside one another, most of them hidden from view. And those who remain in Alaska's remote country learn one essential rule. You do not survive by dominating the wild. You survive by noticing it, respecting it, and learning when to step quietly aside. The hidden community beyond civilization. Living outside civilization does not always mean living without people. In the Alaskan wilderness, a neighbor may be many miles away, yet that neighbor can feel closer than someone living in the apartment next door. Distance changes the meaning of community. In cities, people may pass hundreds of strangers every day without speaking. In remote Alaska, the arrival of a single person can become an important event. A boat appearing on the river, an aircraft circling above the trees, or a snowmobile engine approaching through the darkness may bring news, medicine, tools, food, letters, or simply another human voice. And sometimes, it may bring help. The most intriguing fact about wilderness independence is that it rarely exists in complete isolation. Even the most self-reliant residents depend on networks of pilots, mechanics, health workers, relatives, neighbors, village stores, radio operators, and people who understand the land. True self-reliance is not the ability to need no one. It is the ability to prepare carefully, contribute fairly, and recognize when cooperation is necessary. From a social scientific perspective, small remote communities offer a fascinating view of human relationships. When resources are limited and distances are great, trust becomes practical. Reputation matters. A person known for keeping promises, sharing accurate information, and helping during emergencies becomes extremely valuable. There may be no formal contract when a neighbor agrees to check a trap line, deliver medicine, repair an engine, or watch a cabin. The agreement may rest almost entirely on character. In large societies, many relationships are supported by institutions. Police, hospitals, delivery systems, repair companies, and public services handle problems that individuals cannot solve alone. Far from roads, these systems may be delayed or absent. People themselves become part of the infrastructure. One resident may own the strongest boat. Another may understand engines. Someone else may have medical training, a reliable radio, a large freezer, a chainsaw, or an aircraft landing area. Knowledge and equipment are distributed across the community. Survival becomes easier when these resources are shared responsibly. This does not mean everyone is always friendly. Isolation can intensify disagreements. People may have different ideas about land use, hunting, property boundaries, noise, animals, or responsibility. In small communities, avoiding another person completely may be impossible. Yet conflict carries a different cost when help may someday be needed. People often learn to separate personal feelings from practical cooperation. Two neighbors may disagree strongly and still assist each other during a storm. The wilderness encourages a form of social realism. You do not need to admire everyone, but you must understand that conditions can change quickly, and no one is completely beyond the need for help. Reciprocity is one of the oldest human survival strategies. It means that help given today may be returned later, though not necessarily in the same form. A family may share fish during a successful season. Months later, another household may provide fuel, mechanical assistance, or transportation. This exchange is not always carefully calculated. Its strength comes from continuity. People remember who arrived when a roof collapsed under snow, who searched when a traveler failed to return, and who brought supplies during illness. These actions become part of community memory. Anthropologists have observed that cooperation is especially important in environments where resources are unpredictable. One household may have a successful hunt while another does not. One family's equipment may fail at the worst possible moment. Sharing reduces the risk that random misfortune will destroy a household. In this sense, generosity can be understood as a form of collective insurance. But describing it only in economic terms would miss its emotional meaning. A warm meal delivered to an isolated person is not merely a transfer of calories. It says, "You have not been forgotten." A radio call during a long storm says, "Someone is thinking about your safety." A light from a distant cabin says, "Another human being is still out there." Communication may follow regular patterns. Residents arrange check-ins at certain hours. Pilots report weather conditions. Travelers tell others which route they intend to use. Families may contact one another through satellite devices, radios, or internet connections when energy and signals permit. A missed check-in can begin a quiet chain of concern. At first, someone tries again. Then they contact a neighbor. They may examine the weather, consider the person's route, or travel to the cabin if conditions are safe. This system depends on consistency. A check-in is useful only when people take it seriously. Routine communication becomes a safety net woven from small acts of reliability. Children raised in remote environments often learn responsibility early. They may help carry wood, feed animals, gather berries, clean fish, maintain equipment, or watch younger siblings. They learn that household tasks are connected directly to comfort and safety. If no one brings wood inside, the cabin becomes cold. If tools are left in the snow, they may be lost until spring. If food is not sealed, animals may find it. Consequences are visible and immediate. Developmental psychologists know that children often gain confidence when they are given meaningful responsibilities suited to their abilities. In the wilderness, participation is rarely symbolic. The work genuinely matters. This can create a strong sense of competence. A child who knows how to start a safe fire, recognize changing weather, or navigate a familiar trail understands that knowledge has practical power. But childhood in remote Alaska can also involve limitations. Schools may be small or far away. Some children study at home, attend village schools, or use online programs when communication systems allow. Social contact with other children may be less frequent, especially for families living alone. Parents must balance freedom with danger. The wilderness offers enormous space, yet not every place is safe. Rivers, wildlife, unstable ice, tools, fires, and extreme weather require clear boundaries. Children may be taught to observe rather than panic. They learn what tracks look like, how to dress in layers, where emergency supplies are stored, and why certain rules are never ignored. Education extends far beyond books. It includes ecology, mechanics, food preservation, first aid, navigation, and patience. Traditional knowledge also remains deeply important across Alaska, particularly within indigenous communities whose relationships with northern lands extend through countless generations. This knowledge is not simply a collection of old survival tricks. It is a sophisticated understanding of animals, seasons, water, ice, plants, weather, travel, and social responsibility. It has been tested through observation and experience over long periods of time. Knowing when a river usually freezes, where fish gather, how snow conditions affect travel, or how animals respond to seasonal change can be as valuable as modern equipment. Scientific instruments provide measurements. Traditional knowledge provides context. The strongest understanding often emerges when both are respected. A thermometer may show the air temperature, but local experience may explain how wind, moisture, and terrain will make that temperature feel along a particular route. Satellite images may reveal sea ice, while people who travel on it can identify subtle surface conditions that determine whether movement is safe. Knowledge becomes most powerful when it is connected to place. Stories also carry information. A tale about a dangerous crossing, an unusual winter, or an animal encounter may entertain listeners, but it may also preserve a warning. Before written manuals and digital forecasts, memory was one of humanity's most important survival tools. Stories helped communities remember where accidents occurred, which behaviors led to trouble, and how people responded. Even humor has a practical role. Remote life contains frustration, frozen machinery, lost tools, leaking roofs, stubborn animals, spoiled supplies, and plans destroyed by weather. Laughing does not remove the problem, but it reduces emotional pressure. Shared humor strengthens bonds and helps people tolerate circumstances they cannot control. Psychologically, laughter can interrupt stress, create social connection, and make hardship feel less lonely. A person may spend hours repairing a machine in bitter cold, only to discover that the real problem was a small switch. The story may become funny later. In the wilderness, later is where many difficulties are transformed into stories. Celebrations also become important. Birthdays, holidays, seasonal meals, and community gatherings bring warmth to the long winter. People may travel considerable distances to share food, music, conversation, or religious and cultural traditions. A gathering that would seem ordinary elsewhere can feel extraordinary after weeks of isolation. The room becomes crowded. Coats and boots gather near the door. Food covers the table. Children move between adults while stories pass from one end of the room to the other. The noise may initially feel overwhelming to someone accustomed to silence. Then it becomes comforting. Human voices fill the space that wind and machinery usually occupy. Food is central to many of these gatherings because shared meals express abundance and trust. Someone brings fish. Another brings bread, berries, meat, or preserves. Each dish represents time and labor. To share, it is to share part of one's preparation for the future. Hospitality carries special meaning where travelers may be cold, tired, or delayed. A visitor may need warmth, food, dry clothing, or a place to sleep because weather has made the return journey unsafe. The wilderness often decides how long a guest remains. Plans yield to conditions. A person who expected to stay for an hour may remain overnight or longer. Hosts understand this because they may someday face the same situation. Shelter is offered not only as kindness but as recognition of shared vulnerability. Personal privacy, however, remains valuable. Some people move into the wilderness partly because they desire solitude. They do not want constant visitors or community obligations. Successful remote relationships therefore require respect for boundaries. A person may be generous in an emergency but private in ordinary life. They may enjoy occasional contact without wanting regular company. The wilderness allows many forms of social life, from close village communities to isolated households that communicate only when necessary. Neither isolation nor connection is automatically healthier in every circumstance. The important question is whether a person's social needs are being met. Psychologists distinguish between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is often chosen. It may feel peaceful, creative, or restorative. Loneliness is the distressing feeling that meaningful connection is missing. Two people can live in similar cabins and experience isolation very differently. One may feel free and deeply satisfied. Another may feel trapped and forgotten. Personality matters. So do health, age, family relationships, communication access, and the length of isolation. Remote living requires honest self-knowledge. A romantic image of independence may not survive the reality of months without easy companionship. People who remain successfully often develop a balance, enough solitude to feel free, and enough connection to feel supported. Visitors from cities sometimes imagine wilderness residents as people who have rejected society. But many have not rejected people at all. They have rejected noise, speed, crowding, or dependence on systems they cannot control. They may still value friendship, family, cooperation, and belonging very deeply. In fact, distance may remove many casual relationships while strengthening the few that remain. Conversation becomes more deliberate. Visits are remembered. Promises matter. Silence between people can become comfortable rather than awkward. Two neighbors may sit near a stove without needing to speak constantly. Shared understanding fills the quiet. As evening settles, someone pours another cup of coffee. Snow gathers outside, slowly covering the trail between the cabins. The visitors know they may need to leave soon, before visibility worsens. They discuss the wind, the river, and the condition of the route. Practical information passes naturally through the conversation. Then coats are fastened. Gloves are pulled on. The door opens, and cold air enters the warm room. A few final words are exchanged. The engine starts outside, grows faint, and eventually disappears into the distance. Once again, the cabin becomes quiet. But the silence feels different now. The people inside know that beyond the trees, beyond the frozen river, another light is burning. They know someone will notice if they fail to call. They know help may be far away, but it is not absent. And this may be the deepest secret of life beyond civilization. The farther people live from one another, the more carefully they may learn to hold one another in mind. Why people stay, freedom, meaning, and the price of wilderness life. The most surprising fact about life in the Alaskan wilderness is not that people manage to survive there. It is that many of them would not choose to live anywhere else. They remain despite the darkness, the cold, the isolation, the dangerous travel, and the endless physical work. They remain even though a broken machine can become an emergency. A simple shopping trip may require an aircraft, and winter preparation can consume most of the summer. From the outside, this decision can be difficult to understand. Why would anyone voluntarily leave behind warm houses, nearby hospitals, paved roads, reliable electricity, and shelves filled with food? The answer is rarely simple. Some people come searching for independence. Some are drawn by silence. Others were born in remote regions and feel connected to the land through family, culture, and memory. Some wish to escape crowded cities, constant consumption, or a life controlled by schedules. And some discover, after years in the wilderness, that the hardships themselves have given life a clarity they could not find elsewhere. In ordinary civilization, many essential systems remain invisible. Water appears when a tap is opened. Heat enters a room when a button is pressed. Food waits in stores. Waste disappears. Light arrives instantly. The systems are efficient, but they can separate people from the labor, energy, and natural resources behind daily comfort. In a remote cabin, these connections become impossible to ignore. Warmth begins in the forest. Water begins in snow, ice, rain, springs, lakes, or rivers. Food begins in soil, sunlight, ocean currents, animal migration, human effort, and careful preservation. Electricity may begin as sunlight touching a solar panel or fuel burning inside a generator. Nothing simply appears. Every comfort has a visible origin. This can make life harder, but it can also make it feel more understandable. Psychologists sometimes speak of a need for agency, the feeling that our actions have a meaningful effect on our lives. Remote wilderness living provides agency in an immediate form. Cut wood, and the cabin becomes warm. Repair the roof, and the home remains dry. Preserve food, and winter becomes safer. Ignore these tasks, and the consequences arrive quickly. The connection between action and outcome is direct. This directness can create satisfaction. Many modern jobs involve abstract goals, distant results, digital information, and work that may never feel fully complete. Wilderness tasks are often physical and visible. A pile of split wood grows. A damaged engine runs again. A garden produces food. A cabin wall stands where there was once only an empty clearing. The body becomes tired, but the purpose of the effort is rarely mysterious. This does not mean wilderness life is always emotionally fulfilling. Repetition can become exhausting. Necessary work does not pause because someone feels unmotivated. Snow must still be cleared. Animals must still be fed. The stove must still be tended. Water must still be carried. But within these repeated tasks, some people discover a rhythm that feels deeply natural. The day is organized around real needs rather than constant artificial urgency. There may be fewer choices, but the choices matter more. Freedom in the wilderness is often misunderstood. It is not freedom from responsibility. It is freedom accompanied by extraordinary responsibility. A person may live without a supervisor, landlord, traffic schedule, or nearby authority. They may decide when to work, how to build, what to grow, and how to organize the day. But nature imposes its own rules. Winter does not negotiate. Fire requires attention. Fuel runs out. Bodies become tired. Food spoils. Rivers rise.
Storm arrive.
The wilderness offers independence from some human systems, but it demands obedience to physical reality. In this sense, remote residents are both freer and less free than people in cities. They may choose their lifestyle, but they cannot choose whether the temperature falls, whether the river freezes safely, or whether fog prevents an aircraft from landing. Their freedom exists inside a landscape that remains beyond human control. Perhaps this is part of its appeal. Modern life often creates the illusion that nearly everything can be controlled through technology, money, speed, and planning. The wilderness corrects that illusion. It reminds people that uncertainty is not a failure of organization. It is part of existence. A careful person can prepare for winter and still face an unexpected storm. A skilled hunter can return without food. A reliable machine can fail. A healthy person can become ill. Preparation reduces risk, but it never removes vulnerability. Living with this truth can produce anxiety. It can also produce humility. Humility in the wilderness is not weakness. It is accurate self-awareness. A person learns that strength has limits. Knowledge has limits. Equipment has limits. Even experience has limits. This recognition encourages caution and patience. It also creates respect for other people, animals, weather, and the land itself. Someone who believes they have mastered the wilderness is often more vulnerable than someone who knows mastery is impossible. The land is not an opponent to defeat. It is a complex system to observe. Forests store carbon, water, nutrients, and memory in their growth rings. Rivers transport minerals and life through entire regions. Snow changes soil temperature and water availability. Predators influence the movement of prey, which can influence vegetation. Human beings enter this web as participants. A cabin may occupy only a small clearing, but its effects spread outward. Firewood collection changes the forest. Boats disturb water. Waste attracts animals. Hunting influences populations. Fuel spills can damage soil and streams. Responsible residents think carefully about these effects because they depend directly on the health of the surrounding ecosystem. If water becomes contaminated, there may be no alternative source. If fish populations decline, food security changes. If careless practices attract bears, both humans and animals may suffer. Environmental responsibility becomes personal. The wilderness is not a distant concept to be protected only for beauty. It is the home, pantry, road, water system, and source of warmth. This close dependence can create an ecological awareness that is difficult to develop in places where resources arrive from far away. People begin to notice subtle changes. A season of unusual rain. Thinner river ice. An early thaw. Changes in bird migration. New insects. Wildfire smoke arriving from a distant region. Climate shifts are not only numbers in a scientific report. They influence practical decisions. When does travel become unsafe? Will the ground remain frozen? Will berries ripen at the usual time? Can fuel or food be delivered? Does a traditional route still work? Alaska is warming rapidly compared with many other regions, and these changes affect permafrost, ecosystems, coastal erosion, wildfire risk, sea ice, and community infrastructure. For people living remotely, environmental change may alter generations of local knowledge. A place known as safe may no longer be safe. A river that once froze predictably may become uncertain. A building supported by frozen ground may begin to shift. This creates a new kind of wilderness challenge. Residents must combine experience with new information. Traditional observations, scientific measurements, weather data, and community communication all become necessary. Adaptation continues, as it always has. But the pace of change can be emotionally difficult. People do not relate to land only as a resource. They attach memory to it. A river crossing may carry stories from childhood. A fishing place may be connected to parents or grandparents. A trail may have been used for generations. When the landscape changes, part of personal and cultural identity may feel unstable as well. This is something maps cannot show. A place is not only its physical location. It is the experiences held there. Remote residents often know the land through memories of labor, danger, loss, celebration, and survival. They remember where a machine failed, where an animal appeared, where someone was rescued, or where a family once stopped to rest. The landscape becomes a living archive. Every journey adds another layer. This deep relationship with place may be one of the strongest reasons people remain. A city can offer comfort, opportunity, and safety, yet still feel temporary. A wilderness home may be difficult, but every part of it has been shaped through effort. The trail exists because someone repeatedly traveled it. The cabin stands because logs were cut and lifted. The garden exists because stones were removed and soil was carried. The woodpile represents weeks of labor. The shelves hold the preserved results of a season. Home becomes something created continuously rather than simply occupied. To leave, it may mean leaving behind years of physical memory. There are also experiences that cannot easily be reproduced elsewhere. The first snowfall arriving in complete silence. The return of migrating birds in spring. The movement of caribou across distant ground. The sound of river ice breaking after winter. A midnight summer sky that never becomes fully dark. A winter night so clear that stars seem close enough to touch. These moments do not erase hardship, but they may make the hardship feel worthwhile. Human beings often value experiences more strongly when they require effort. A view reached after a difficult climb can feel more beautiful. Warmth after hours in the cold can feel more comforting. Food after physical labor can taste more satisfying. Contrast intensifies perception. In the wilderness, comfort is rarely taken for granted because discomfort is always nearby. A dry pair of socks matters. A working engine matters. A full water container matters. A calm evening matters. Gratitude becomes practical rather than abstract. People may not describe themselves as grateful every day. They may complain, feel tired, and dream of easier conditions. Yet their awareness of basic comforts is often unusually sharp. They know what it means when the stove catches quickly. They know the reassurance of hearing a generator start. They know how valuable a safe return journey feels. This attention to small successes can protect mental health. A wilderness life is too large to control all at once. The winter is too long, the land too vast, and the risks too numerous. So people focus on the next action. Bring in wood. Heat water. Check the weather. Repair the damaged part. Prepare the evening meal. Then rest. This approach resembles psychological techniques used to manage overwhelming situations. Large uncertainty is divided into small, manageable steps. The person cannot control the whole season, but they can prepare for tonight. They cannot guarantee that no emergency will occur, but they can check the medical kit. They cannot command the storm to leave, but they can secure the cabin. Action reduces helplessness. The wilderness also changes ideas about wealth. In cities, wealth may be measured through money, property, possessions, or professional status. In remote Alaska, some of the most valuable things are practical. Dry firewood, reliable tools, healthy animals, stored food, fuel, good boots, strong relationships, knowledge of the land, time to prepare. A person may own very little by urban standards and still feel rich because the cabin is warm, the pantry is full, and the surrounding landscape provides space, beauty, and freedom. Another person may possess expensive equipment but remain vulnerable because they lack experience or dependable relationships. Material objects matter, but knowledge determines how useful they are. A sophisticated machine is only valuable if it can be maintained. A freezer full of food is only secure while electricity continues. A large cabin becomes a burden if it cannot be heated. The wilderness quietly asks the same question of everything. Does this help you live? Possessions that require too much fuel, maintenance, storage, or attention may eventually feel less like luxuries and more like obligations. Simplicity often develops not as a philosophy, but as an efficient response. Fewer objects mean fewer repairs. Smaller spaces require less heat. Tools with multiple uses become valuable. Clothing is chosen for durability rather than fashion. This practical simplicity can create mental space. There is less pressure to follow every trend or continually replace possessions. Objects gain character through years of use. A scratched table records meals and projects. A repaired jacket carries evidence of journeys. A knife handle becomes smooth through repeated work. The boundary between useful object and personal memory begins to blur. There is, however, a price for this life. The body may wear down from physical labor. Accidents can have lasting consequences. Medical care may be delayed. Children may have limited educational or social opportunities. Relationships can suffer under isolation. Older residents may eventually find that tasks once manageable have become too difficult. Remote living is not always sustainable for an entire lifetime. Some people leave reluctantly when their health changes. The decision can feel like a loss of identity, independence, and home. Moving closer to civilization may provide safety, but it can also bring noise, crowds, dependence, and a sense of disconnection from the natural rhythms that once organized life. The transition can be psychologically painful. A person who was highly capable in the wilderness may feel less capable in a modern system filled with unfamiliar technology, bureaucracy, and social expectations. Adaptation works in both directions. Just as a city resident must learn wilderness life, a long-term wilderness resident may need to relearn civilization. This reminds us that no lifestyle is naturally simple for everyone. We become skilled in the environments we repeatedly inhabit. The wilderness resident learns ice, weather, engines, animals, and distance. The urban resident learns schedules, institutions, traffic, digital systems, and crowded social spaces. Each form of life contains knowledge invisible to outsiders. The mistake is to imagine that one requires intelligence while the other does not. Human adaptation takes many forms. As our journey through the Alaskan wilderness comes to an end, imagine once more the isolated cabin beneath the northern sky. It is late winter. The cold remains strong, but daylight is slowly returning. Snow still covers the land, yet the sun now touches the trees for a little longer each afternoon. Inside, the stove burns. A few jars remain on the pantry shelf. Tools rest near the wall. Boots dry beside the entrance. The sounds of the cabin are familiar: fire, breathing, wind, and the quiet movement of wood responding to temperature. Outside, tracks cross the snow. Some belong to a fox, some to a moose. Some are human. They lead away from the cabin and disappear among the trees. Soon, spring will loosen the rivers. Birds will return. Boats will replace snowmobiles. Gardens will be planted, fish will move through the water, and the cycle of preparation will begin again. Nothing in this life is truly finished. Each season prepares for another. Each task connects the present to the future. Perhaps this is the final lesson of living outside civilization. Survival is not one heroic moment. It is thousands of ordinary actions performed with care. It is placing wood beneath a roof before rain arrives. It is checking the ice before crossing. It is calling a neighbor. It is preserving one more jar of food. It is recognizing fear, then preparing calmly. It is knowing when to continue and when to turn back. The people who live in the Alaskan wilderness are not separate from civilization in every sense. They use modern tools, communicate across great distances, and depend on networks of people and knowledge. But they live close enough to nature to see what civilization often hides. Every life depends on heat, water, food, shelter, cooperation, and a stable environment. The wilderness simply removes the walls that conceal those truths. And in the silence beyond the last road, people may discover that a meaningful life does not always require more comfort, more speed, or more possessions. Sometimes it requires attention. Sometimes it requires patience. Sometimes it requires accepting that the world cannot be controlled. And sometimes it requires standing outside a small cabin beneath the northern lights, listening to the immense silence, and understanding that although human beings are fragile, they are also remarkably capable of adapting, enduring, and finding a home at the very edge of the wild. Thank you for spending this quiet journey with me. This documentary was researched, edited, and produced for Sleep and Learn. Good night, and I'll meet you in the next story.